After leaving the brothel, Shakib tried to stay at a friend's house temporarily. His friend advised him not to go to that kind of place, but he said it didn't matter, he only wanted that woman. He had no education and could only work as a forest worker. Recently, he worked as a coolie on a set. After finishing his work one day, he told the producer that his wife and children had died in the earthquake, and he was now living at a friend's house. The producer sighed sympathetically and arranged for him to stay on the set. He helped in the kitchen during the day and kept watch on the set at night. But the condition was that he could not invite guests, no matter who they were. The set was going to shoot a World War II movie about Hitler. Hassan, the master, arranged for him to sleep in the gas chamber. It was dark and cold here, and it rained and water fell, which was very uncomfortable to live in. The next day, the workers who were working were suddenly pulled to act as extras. Shakib was also among them, playing a prisoner in a concentration camp. In one scene, the prisoners stood behind the barbed wire, waiting for Hitler to arrive. But the actor who played Hitler suddenly fainted and could not continue filming. The director had to look for a new candidate. No one expected that he would choose Shakibo. Shakibo was at a loss and just said that he could not act. But the director insisted that it didn't matter if he didn't know the lines, and he would redub them later. The effect of the test costume was not bad, and Shakibo was reluctant to put his mind at ease. After the work, he sent a video to his wife and daughter Bin Laden to tell them about it. At night, she did not live in the gas chamber, but moved to Hitler's Red House and lived with Hassan. Hassan was very unhappy, so he deliberately mocked Shakibo's Hitler for having a beard. Shakibo did not want to be ridiculed, so he shaved his beard that night. The producer was very angry, and it was wrong to have Hitler without a beard. To prevent Shakibo from continuing to act up, the producer urged her to sign a contract and promised that she could live in the Red House forever. As for Hassan, who deliberately tripped her, he was sent to the gas chamber. In the first scene, Hitler was going to slap the prisoner hard in the face, but Shakibo couldn't even get past the beat because her slap was too light. The director had to call her aside and asked her to imagine a scene. Suppose she was with her most important lover and child in her life, and one day, those prisoners cut her lover and child into pieces. What would she do? Would she still slap them so lightly? Shakibo thought about it, and then during the filming, she directly pulled out a gun and shot those prisoners one by one. At night, Shakibo finally had the entire Red House to herself. Although it was just a set, the furnishings in the room looked quite beautiful. She happily sent a video to Bin Laden, and the next day, Bin Laden sent her a message to ask her to meet. Bin Laden was deaf and dumb, and communication depended entirely on hatred. This was not a problem for Shakibo. Her mother was also mute, so she was familiar with Xiaoyu. Laden said that the boss wanted to drug her, so she ran away and hoped to live with Shakibo for a few days. Shakibo said no, the studio could not receive guests, but Laden begged hard. She would only stay for 3 or 4 days and then leave the town. Shakibo could not resist, so she had to secretly bring Laden back to the studio and hide him in the Red House. It rained heavily at night, and Hassan couldn't stand the gas chamber leaking, so he ran back to the Red House. Shakibo quickly asked the prostitute to hide in the small room. After a night, she told the producer about it, and Hassan was punished for it, and warned not to disturb Shakibo again. The Red House officially became Shakibo's one-man show. But at this time, 2 more men came to the studio. They were the owner and thugs of the brothel. After Bin Laden ran away, they searched everywhere and finally found Shakibo and asked him for information. Shakibo lied that he had never seen Bin Laden, and the boss Wenyan did not stay for long and left soon. Shakibo was still in shock. He walked around the red room, then pried open the floor and asked Bin Laden to hide underground first and go to the station at night. Since the boss had already suspected him, he would definitely come back again, and bin Laden could not stay here any longer. Bin Laden refused to leave and would rather hide underground, but Shakibo still took him to the station at night and bought him a ticket to Tehran. However, when bin Laden really got on the train, Shakibo regretted it again. In the end, he took bin Laden back to the Red Room. But when he was about to close the door, two people suddenly broke in. The boss and the thugs really came back. They were no longer polite to Saqib's deception. They caught bin Laden as soon as they entered the house and beat Saqib. Saqib was completely unable to resist. Later, the boss wanted to take bin Laden away. Bin Laden desperately begged for help. Saqib could not help but protect bin Laden and said that he was willing to pay for bin Laden's redemption. After a lot of bargaining, they finally agreed on 100 million yuan, which would be paid the day after tomorrow at the latest. The boss and the thugs left, and Saqib and bin Laden stayed in the Red Room, cleaning up the mess with heavy hearts. Saqib did not have that much money at all. Bin Laden felt that this was playing with fire, and he should go back to the brothel tonight. But Saqib said that he would find a way to raise money and then elope with bin Laden. The next day, Saqib found the producer and said that he could not film anymore. His mother was seriously ill and needed money for treatment. He had to go out and find a way to raise money. The producer was very upset. He had sold his house and put all his wealth on the line to make this movie, so he absolutely could not accept Saqib's withdrawal. But Saqib insisted on leaving, so the producer had to write a check for 20 million and asked Saqib to use it for emergency. The remaining amount would be given later. 20 million was still far from his goal, but Saqib was already very satisfied. With this check, he would have the confidence to ask his boss for more time tomorrow. In the evening, after everyone else had left, Saqib took bin Laden to the gas chamber to get up early, and then they warmed themselves around the pot fire. Bin Laden had many bracelets on his wrists. He took one off and gave it to Saqib, asking Saqib to sell the bracelet and add it to the ransom. All the jewelry on him was fake, only this bracelet was real gold. Saqib returned the bracelet to bin Laden, saying that it was fine this time, and he could use it again in the future when needed. Bin Laden said while clasping his hands that he had cheated on Shaqib. In fact, the boss did not drug him. He lied because he wanted to be with Shaqib. He was sure that he was willing to have children for Shaqib, and many children. After leaving here, they would visit Shaqib's hometown. The next morning, Shaqib went to the kitchen to get some food and had breakfast with bin Laden. Then, before the others arrived, bin Laden hid under the floor. The work that day was very heavy. The workers were moving gasoline into the house. Shaqib helped move it for a while, and then left early. He also had to rush to the Machine Institute to pay the boss. The check amount was not enough, and the boss was very unhappy. After some negotiations, Shaqib promised that he would raise the rest of the money within 3 days. When taking the bus back, the car broke down halfway, and the passengers got off one after another. At this time, thick smoke suddenly rose from the direction of the studio not far away, near the red house. Saqib was stunned. After a while, he heard a series of explosions from the Red Room. More smoke rose up. The Red Room was burned. Saqib ran back to the studio and saw that the Red Room was already a sea of fire. He hurriedly called bin Laden, but the call could no longer be connected. That night, he cried in front of the ruins of the Red Room, and then returned to the gas chamber, where a strand of bin Laden's hair was still on the ground.